In this video, I will explain how to derive an expenditure function given a utility function. So let's jump right into an example that says, suppose a consumer has the utility function u equals xy. Their utility u is equal to x, the quantity consumed of good x, times y, the quantity consumed of good y. Find the expenditure function e. Now, the expenditure function will tell us the minimum expenditure needed to achieve a given utility level given the prices of the goods. So the way that we are going to find this expenditure function is by recognizing that the consumer will maximize their utility when the following is true. When the marginal utility of x divided by the price of x is equal to the marginal utility of y divided by the price of y. So when this is true, the consumer is able to maximize their utility. So we're going to start by finding what is the marginal utility of x and the marginal utility of y. So the marginal utility of x, let's start with that. That's simply the derivative of the utility function with respect to x. So the derivative of this utility function with respect to x would just be y. Because to find the derivative, we just take the derivative of this x, which is 1, and then the y comes along for the ride, so we're left with y. And similarly, the marginal utility of y, that's equal to the derivative of the utility function with respect to y. So the derivative of this function with respect to y is just going to be x, because we'll take the derivative of y, which is 1, and we'll just be left with x. That's equal to x. So now we can fill in these values into this equation. So here's what we get. The marginal utility of x, that's y. So we have y divided by the price of x is equal to, we'll have x divided by the price of y. Now we can easily solve for x and y by cross multiplying and setting these values equal to each other. So we will find that y times the price of y is equal to x times the price of x. So it's easy to see that x is going to be equal to y times the price of y divided by the price of x, and y is going to be equal to x times the price of x divided by the price of y. Now what we can do with these x and these y values is plug them back into the utility function. So let's start with x. Let's plug in this value for x into the utility function. So we'll get u is equal to, we'll have y times the price of y divided by the price of x times y. So let's go ahead and solve this equation for y. So we'll get u is equal to y squared times the price of y divided by the price of x. To get y all by itself, we can multiply both sides by the reciprocal of this value right here. So that would be u times the price of x over the price of y is equal to y squared. And lastly, to get y all by itself, we can take the square root of the right-hand side and the left-hand side. So we'll find that y, let's rewrite y on the left-hand side. We'll have y is equal to u to the 1/2 times the price of x to the 1/2 times the price of y to the 1/2. And then we can repeat this process and then plug y into the utility function this time. So we'll get u is equal to x times, for y we're plugging in this quantity. So we'll have x times the price of x divided by the price of y. So simplifying a little bit, we get u is equal to x squared times the price of x times the price of y. To get x by itself, we'll multiply both sides by the reciprocal of this fraction right here, and we'll find that u times the price of y over the price of x is equal to x squared. And if we take the square root of both sides, we'll find that x is equal to u to the 1/2 times the price of y to the 1/2 divided by the price of x to the 1/2. Now the very last step is we're going to plug in these values for x and y into the expenditure function. So I'll clear a little bit of space here. Okay, so here are the values that we found for x and y. What we're going to do is take these two values and plug them in for x and y into this expenditure function. So this expenditure function, it's telling us how much we're going to spend. So the format of this function is the price of x times x, the quantity of x, plus the price of y times the quantity of y. So let's see what we get when we plug these two values in for x and y. We'll have e, our expenditure function, is equal to p of x times x. So we're plugging this in for x. So we're going to end up with u to the 1/2 times the price of y to the 1/2 divided by the price of x to the 1/2. Plus, when we plug in a y right here, we'll have the price of y times u to the 1/2 times the price of x to the 1/2 divided by the price of y to the 1/2. Now we can simplify this a little bit by recognizing that this price of x right here has an exponent of 1. So according to our exponent rules, when we have a price of x to the first power in the numerator and the price of x to the 1/2 in the denominator, we can just subtract the exponent. So we'll do 1 minus 1/2. So we'll be left with e is equal to the price of x to the 1/2, and then we'll have u to the 1/2, price of y to the 1/2. And similarly over here, we'll do the exact same thing where this exponent right here, this price of y has an exponent of 1, so we can just subtract the 1/2 exponent right here. So we'll be left with plus price of y to the 1/2, and then times u to the 1/2, and times the price of x to the 1/2. So what we'll notice here is that these two quantities are the exact same. So in other words, we have two of these quantities. So we can say we have e is equal to 2 times, let's write it as the price of x to the 1/2 times the price of y to the 1/2 times u to the 1/2. So this is our expenditure function. Because all of these powers are raised to the 1/2, we could write them under a square root if we'd like to. So let's go ahead and do that as our final answer. We'll say our expenditure function e is equal to 2 times the square root of the price of x times the price of y times u. So this is our final answer. This is our expenditure function based on the utility function that we were given. And this function tells us the minimum expenditure needed to achieve a utility level of u given the price of good x and the price of good y.